Fuente is a principal partner with Meka Financial Plan, LLC, vice president with Kainos Asset Management, and the director of Haifa College Planning. He's also a Haifa HR instructor and a certified financial educator with the Heartland Institute of Financial Education. His passion is to assist individuals and families to properly prepare, strategize, and take action to achieve their financial goal. His focus is on providing sound financial education. Carl has more than 17 years of experience in the financial services and mortgage banking industries. He's a popular national speaker known at Honeywell, Jacobs Engineering, Emerson, Cameron, Port of Galveston, Texas Chiropractic School, Texas A&M, and NASA Johnson Space Center for teaching the Haifa Financial Wellness classes. He also plays a pivotal role in the success of Heartland's college planning program. Outside of his professional life, Carl supports and sponsors his community by providing complimentary financial and college planning advice.
I can't tell you how excited I am because I talk to so many parents, and particularly CEOs and people who are in business that are really trying to figure out what to do with their children's college. And one of the biggest things that I hear is that they just say, gee, I can just use the counselor at school. But I was wondering what you think about that with what you do. I don't understand why they would only want to use the counselor at school.
The challenge with using just a counselor is I believe you're limited. When you look at the average student per counselor, it's anywhere from $250 to $500 per counselor. So when you think about that, and depending on the size of the school, that's going to determine how much time they can spend with them. And usually most counselors are going to spend time with its students around the junior, senior year, and they're limited on their time. When you think about our program, or even forget our program, when you think about just college planning in general, the idea is to get additional help, just in case that you don't get help where you're currently at. And so I think it's very critical for not only both parents, but the student to find additional help, because unfortunately in this day and age, we find people that have educations or degrees, and they're not really into their career or into their field. Or we even have people that have careers, but they're looking to switch 5 years into it, 7 years into it.
Oh, I hear that all the time.
With proper planning, proper coaching, and being able to have someone as a resource to you, they can look over information for you. I think it's just an added benefit. So not to take anything away from high school counselors, I just think an added benefit or an additional coach is always, or should always be welcomed.
We have so many CEOs and so many business owners who are trying to put their kids through college. And it's really, really tough because they seem to be like a sandwich type of generation, because in 1 minute they're trying to put their child through college, and then they're also trying to take care of their senior parents. So I'm kind of wondering what the best way to go about trying to put them through college is, because they're burning up all their money. They won't have any retirement whatsoever. So Carl, what are your thoughts about this? Because when I talk to parents, they're always saying, oh, well, I'll just use the person that we have at school. And they're saying also that it's $100,000 to send their child to college.
You know, what I tell you is this: I believe that high school guidance counselors are going to be a good help. But in reality, when you look at the average student, or how many students they have per counselor, is on range anywhere from $250 to $500. And so when you speak of investing $100,000 for someone's education, I believe it would be best that you get additional help, guidance, making sure that your son or daughter is getting the proper career, proper education.
So when you say career, what's the best way to determine the career? Because sometimes the kids go to school for 2 years and then they say, I don't like this, I'm done with this, and then the parents have to pay for an additional 2 years, so then that adds to the other $100,000 that they had to pay.
I'm smiling because that's actually me. I was one of those students where I didn't know what I wanted to do. Within our program itself, we do proper assessments. We make sure that we identify what the students' interests are, their skills, and their work values. Once we understand that information, we can then help them design or find out what occupation matches up to that, and then what education to support that. Whereas many students, unfortunately, they go undecided, or the careers that they choose, it's good today, but then 10 years from now, not so good. Understanding yourself can help you find a proper career. I believe you're going to find that it's an optimal career based on information of the student themselves.
Wow. I think it's just so hard on parents because I've heard kids go, oh, I want to go to this college because my friend is going there. And it may or may not be the best college for whatever it is they have an aptitude for.
So what ends up happening with students that are in our program, and again, everything you're saying is what I went through personally, where I was going to go to college, where all my friends were, my brothers were, and that's not necessarily the best choice. So when we take a look at an assessment and we identify what their career interest is, their skills, and we find a school that can support that education, then we're able to design or at least help them understand which school is going to be best suited for their education to help them get into that career. Because what you said, more times than not, the student's going to go where their friends are, where they're comfortable.
Right, yes.
And find out that maybe the degree they're trying to attain isn't the one that's going to be supported at that school. So we look into that and we help the students understand that. We help them identify how to look at that information because every school is made up different.
There's so many programs out there, including the schools. What would you say makes your program different than everybody else's?
First and foremost, the individuals that work with the students are what we consider coaches. They all come from higher education, at least 20 plus years on average. They've worked as academic advisors, counselors at a college level, or even as deans, assistant deans. Some even worked in the financial aid office, and even the admissions office. That's number one, what I'd say is the distinct difference between other programs. The other part is when a student's in our program, we want to help them identify how to find the best, if not optimal, career for themselves. And we do that through proper assessments, making sure we help them understand their interests, their skills, and their work values. By doing that, we can again help them find what I believe is an optimal career.
So that kind of takes care of those kids that go to school for like 2 years and then go, I don't want to do this. I'm going to do another 2 years on top of the other 2 years they still have to go, right?
Well, it's interesting you say that because that was me. And that's the challenge we have is people go undecided. So once you can work with them and understand their interests, their skills, and their values, it's easier for us to identify what occupations can match up to that. Once we show them how that occupation relates to them, it's easy to guide them in terms of what education they need to obtain to get that. And once they see that, they're more focused on obtaining that goal. Again, the problem for many is no one's properly assessed them, helping them identify what that is.
And so many kids are doing something that there's a job today, but there may not be a job when they get out. And that's why so many kids are out of work right now, right?
Very true. You know, the jobs that are hot today didn't exist 10, 15 years ago. And so that's important in terms of planning. And that's why you have to look into the students' assessments and really help them identify and project what possibilities they have by the time they graduate. Because many of the students that we're talking about are high school level. College is years from now. And when they finish, it's still years from now. So that proper preparation, and again, it starts with assessments, making sure we identify interests, their skills, and their work values.
Some kids are already graduating or they're going into their master's or their PhD. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum where they're in high school. So share with us, when is a good time to start your child into the process?
I would say the best time to always start a student is early. The sooner the better, because there's certain things that you can be doing as a freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. And if you start in the program, such as your junior, senior year, you can't go back in time and make up things for your freshman and sophomore year.
When's the best time to start the student in the program, or any program for that matter? What's the best way to prep a child?
I believe the best way is to start them early. And part of that is what you said. In the senior year, they're running around, racing around, trying to get things done. Well, if you can plant the seed of college or planning for college early on, they can do those things beforehand. So they're not running around in their senior year saying, I should do this, I should do that, I don't have time to do this. See, the earlier the better, making sure they build the right habits in their freshman year, sophomore year, and being able to outline what's required of them by the time they go to their senior year and what colleges are looking for, and making sure they're in the right places.
Carl, in my line of work, I'm out with people all the time. And I see student loan after student loan after student loan. And sometimes they're 20,000, sometimes they're 50, sometimes they're 120,000. And the sad part in my mind about that is they can never get out of that loan once they get into it. I mean, they can't do bankruptcy, they can't do anything to get out of that loan. So what are your thoughts about student loans?
My first thought is student loans are not that bad because first and foremost, they help you pay to go to college.
Mhm.
They help you get your education, which leads you to your occupation. So with that said, I do believe if you have an overextended amount, that's where the problem is. And that's why college planning is critical.
Mhm.
If you look into schools, certain schools give out X amount of dollars for scholarships, grants, loans, and work studies. If you know that prior to going in, then I think you can best position yourself of looking or saying, maybe this is not a school for me. Maybe I need to look at a different school that gives different type of aid. So that's the challenge with students is they're not looking into the school themselves to define what type of aid is being given. Is it predominantly in the loans or is it predominantly in the free money, which is grants and scholarships? And I think that's what most students are looking for. That's why looking into colleges is so critical prior to even going.
And I know you have a really awesome program online, don't you? Where they can actually look at the different colleges?
Yes, we do. You know, the tool itself is very viable. The information is updated all the time. But it's not so much that it's the tool, it's more the coaching. Because what good is information if the student themselves don't know how to understand the information?
Good point.
So yes, we have the tool so that you can review different colleges and compare them. But I still believe you need guidance on understanding what information you're looking at.
Tell me, what's expected of the parents and the students?
Well, let's talk about the students. What's mainly expected of them is there's going to be assignments that's going to be given on a monthly basis, making sure that whatever is given to them by our coaches, that they complete them. The whole purpose of those assignments is to put them in a better position. They may not understand why they're doing it, but as time progresses through the program, it puts them in a better position. Just like when our parents tell us to do something, it's not today that we know, but it's years later that we understand why. As far as the parents, we expect them to support their son, their daughter, their student, making sure that they're doing the work that's necessary to succeed in our program. But I find for parents, one of the things that I like them to understand is to be encouraging, to be empowering. Sometimes what we want for our kids isn't necessarily what our kids want for themselves. So making sure that we're a positive reinforcement for the things that they're doing. That's how we can help them out. Or what's to be
I
expected.
understand that. I didn't often want what my parents wanted me to want.
Right.
So I totally understand that sometimes the parents and the children don't agree at all.
And that's why I think when you assess a student, and that's what we do, is we identify what their interests are, their skills, and their values, and being able to show that to a parent, they may find it doesn't match up to what they think their son or daughter should do. And so that could at least help the student engage their parents in a conversation of the things that they're trying to accomplish with their education or occupation.
That sounds wonderful. I think one of the biggest problems that parents have, particularly parents, because the kids don't really get involved in this, is that stupid FAFSA form for filling out for the government. I mean, the form is like this long, and if people don't answer it right, do they still get student aid? What happens?
Well, you're going to find the biggest challenge or biggest mistakes that happens with financial aid, or with FAFSA, I should say, is when families fill it out, they either fill out incomplete, inaccurate, or inconsistent. And if any of that ever happens, it actually triggers an audit. And when it triggers an audit, if you're eligible for financial aid and you didn't fix it, it could cost you your financial aid. So sometimes by not knowing or being aware of how to fill it out completely, accurately, and making sure the information is consistent is the reason why it's costing you aid. That's why, again, we recommend that you work with someone that has experience of understanding that information, someone that can overview it for you, look at it, and ensure that things are being done properly. Because it's very important when we talk about one's financial aid, that form particularly.
And when should the parents get the FAFSA form into the government? When's the best time as far as actually getting the aid?
The key date is actually in the month of January, preferably as close to January 1 as possible. What happens is if you do in the month of January, it ensures that you meet all the college's deadlines. Because most colleges' deadline for FAFSA is sometime in February or March.
And where do they get that form?
When I went to college, it was like what you mentioned, very long, very lengthy. Now it's actually streamlined in the sense that it's no longer paper. So you can go to FAFSA.gov. So it's www.fafsa.gov. And you can request for your PIN number. And then once you request for that, you can input your information.
Oh, that's much easier than it used to be.
Now there's even an IRS tool in there where if you happen to complete your taxes, all you do is click on a button and then it populates all your information from your taxes. But the key part of that to work is you have to complete your taxes.
Oh, yes.
So in January, I don't know of anybody that actually does their taxes in January quite yet.
And I don't know anybody that wants to trigger an audit either.
More times than not, if it's not done properly, that can happen. And what you don't want is when you have an audit, especially when it's dealing with income, you actually end up going through a lot more headache, a lot more problems, because now they do like income verification, and there's more documents that are required, and just that process alone is draining. So again, I think if you get it done right the first time, it can alleviate some of the headache, if not all of the headache.
Carla, you've given us some really wonderful information, and I think that our audience really has some tips that they can actually work on right away if they have children that are ready to go to college. Do you have a wrap-up that you would like to share with us?
Make sure that your son or daughter understands what they want to do and be able to support that, because at the end of the day, it's your money that you're possibly helping them with to achieve their education and career goals.